It is Eve 2020, May 29th, 1500 UTC. That is Eve time. I am Matterall. Going to have some friends here with me, talk about the Triglavian invasions, how they're heating up. We'll speak to Insidious Stainhood a little bit later. He's running for CSM. That vote's coming up. And then we'll see what else is in the news. Let's move over to PCU. PCU at this moment is over 30,000 at 30,137 players online on Tranquility. And the past range has been 34,000 to as low as like 19,400. That's a good range. That kind of tracks with the rest of the week behind us. That is, it's a little bit softer than it was in the previous 2 weeks. Still haven't figured out why that is, but it's, I would say it was significantly softer. As you can see, and I'll map it out here, we're trucking along pretty good, clipping over at 40,000 every weekend, which is pretty good. And the weekdays were sitting in the mid 30s to, I think, high 30s. Yeah, high 30s. And then we had DDoS attacks, so there was a lot of disruption. People were coming in at around under 30,000. So that was terrible. But then when that got fixed a couple weeks ago, maybe like this, 2 weeks ago, the stats really repaired themselves, and the average for the weekday was, high 30s, 38,000 there. I'm rounding up 38,000, but the weekends were going over 40,000 pretty significantly. I think we tracked it like a 41,500, 42. And this is a promising sign that happened for a couple days. But then this week, it's been a little bit softer. During the weekday, it's been hitting around 33, 34,000. So I'm not sure what's going on there. But I imagine it was pent up urge to play since the DDoS attack knocked people offline, and then they caught up over the last few weeks, and now they're kind of back to a more normal routine. It's a little bit soft. Now you think, like, is nothing going on? Well, no, there's a lot of combat going on, as we've seen. There's a lot of surprises too. And this new Triglavian content's hit. So I think a lot of people might be waiting to see how this Triglavian content shakes out. Or they might be just getting ready to take on the new content, but they want to see like some stability to it or some patterns first. I don't know. We'll find out. But that's the PCU. And let's move on to statistics. The most violent systems in EVE Online, and by violent we mean PvP content. And we'll start with Empire Space. Domain has 4,371 ships destroyed, with a third of those pods destroyed that eject from those ships. The Forge comes in at 1,823, and Black Rise is number 3 at 1,798. Big story here is in nullsec is Owasso. Had 844 ships destroyed. Delve coming in second, 656. And Veil of the Silent, 651. All right, most violent systems are Attack Z. I think we checked in on that in Owasso. That's 398 ships destroyed. C TAC 6 in Innsma there, 203 ships destroyed. And Rio, we've got to talk about Rio today because a Titan went down with 3 supers. In Kalevala Expanse, that is 131. Good morning, everyone. Oh, I've got to take a break. I will be back in 5 minutes. Something has come up, so I'll be back in 5 minutes.
Greetings. Hi. Thanks. Sure.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, last Tuesday was the beginning of Chapter 3, which is kind of the completion, the culmination of the invasion system. So, the invasion system, as we had it before, was effectively a reskinned incursion. And after talking to CCP Coyote, has always basically been kind of the prototype version of what we have right now. So this on day one, several systems began to be scouted. There's 5 different states. The middle state is its scouted state. Once it starts a scouted state, this starts almost like a competitive PvE challenge where whoever runs the most sites while also killing the rats of the enemy team all throughout this cluster, or sorry, all throughout the system. Plus doing other activities. There's infrastructure and stuff to attack and destroy and all those kinds of things. Either way, as you do your stuff, it pushes towards your side. Now, the first 2 times that the Kybernauts, which is what we've started to call pro-Triglavian forces, pushed this system over to the Trig side, the first 2 times the system completed, the invasion ended, and within 24 hours, all signs and symptoms, or well, within like an hour, I think, all signs and symptoms that an invasion had ever been there at all had been basically removed. All that was left was the accelerator, which remained after the invasion, that they eventually tried to defend, or the Kybernauts attempted to repair, but eventually was destroyed by pro-Edencom forces. At this time, people thought that there was a bug. However, CCP has repeatedly confirmed that it is not. And so then that, and then meanwhile, Edencom, I think on day one, managed to push a different system into redoubts and bulwarks, which is their stage 2. And that successfully happened. In fact, overnight, that one of the systems was put into fortification mode, which basically means that Edencom has won that system permanently. A second system was put into play that was in low sec, and eventually, although I know that there were some Kybernauts that fought for it, eventually that also got pushed over into the fortification side. So all that brings us to yesterday. Yesterday morning, Edencom forces pushed a system into their side, and it failed to progress, which means now both sides have completed their tasks and failed to progress the system. And both sides have completed their tasks and succeeded in advancing the system. And in spite of all of this, CCP has declared, or as far as I know, and like I've now talked to the guy who made this feature. So far, everything is happening as, well, not expected. Expected is probably the wrong word, but like, they're telling me that it's working as intended. So, this leads me to suspect that there's something that we are missing. Either way, shortly thereafter, in the system of Raravoss, it was, yesterday morning, a blue star in high sec went into play. The first 2 systems that were taken by the Triglavians were not blue stars. We suspect that the nature of the blue star is important to the Triglavians for a whole bunch of reasons. And so as of yesterday, Raravoss, the blue star that is a 0.6 system, it was taken by the Triglavian Kybernet forces, and it is, as of right now, a 0.3 system. So for the first time in EVE Online history, player action in the game has led to a change, and potentially permanent change, of security of a system.
That's a big deal.
It is a big deal. The result of which actually is that there is 3 systems that used to be connected to HiSec that is now a HiSec island because there is a low-sec system that functions as a choke point to those other systems. It was absolutely wild. There's like 350 plus people in the system at all times. The shit talking in local is amazing. Everybody's kind of getting into the RP of it. People arguing about whether or not Concord's bad or Trigger bad or blah blah blah. But my favorite moment so far. Okay, so as you enter into like like right as you're beginning to beat the opponent in the system, one of the last things to happen is that they start to build their stellar accelerators, and each empire have their own stellar accelerator. It aids in their tank type and in their E-War. In the case of the Triglavians, it helps with remote reps and limits your lock rate by half. So it really cripples like cap train kind of stuff and really helps ships like, I don't know, the Rediva that doesn't lock up very many things. So the DAS Liminality Locust is the new stellar accelerator. So they construct this thing and it makes this weather effect. And so as this is part of the event, as I mentioned earlier, the first system that went for the Kybernauts, they left this liminality locust. And so for 3 hours, there was like a dozen people that was trying to rep it and a whole bunch of people that eventually ended up killing it in spite of the fact that all these other people were trying to rep it. Well, in Raravoss, the same thing started to happen, right? As soon as the liminality locust was built, a whole bunch of people went over to go try to defend it, and a whole bunch of people went to go try to kill it because everybody thought that this might have been like a key piece to the whole puzzle. Well, so now you have this grid that's on, with the star, and there's all these different guys that are both interacting with this liminality locust. Some people trying to save it, some people trying to kill it. It's high sec, and then suddenly it's not high sec anymore, and it's low sec. So like it shifted over to the Kybernaut side. It completes. Everybody kind of like pauses for a second, and then the UI pops open that shows that it's entered into first liminality, and local just freaks out as everybody's like celebrating for the Kybernauts and stuff like that. And then from that, somebody points out, "Hey guys, it's low sec." Now,
let's kill each other.
The system still says 0.6, but now there's this little tiny chevron next to it that points down that says you're in danger. So as soon as the Kybernaut forces noticed this, they looked over at the Edencom guys and just started butchering them. So, like one of the best kill models that came out of it that I saw was this 4 billionist rattlesnake. Because, like, you think about it, like there's a system that's just competitive PvE. The people were running it as hard as they could with their best stuff, and suddenly, danger.
Yeah,
and it became this scramble to get things safe, to get things out, to understand what the fuck is happening. What what are the consequences?
Yeah.
Somebody in local said that they had shut off the gates. And so, like, everybody believed him for a second. And, like, everybody's trying to figure out, like, oh, God, am I going to have to pod out? Find the wormhole. It was amazing.
Okay, but the gates were not closed.
The gates were not closed. Not yet.
Okay. Not yet. We don't know if that's part of the big plans coming up. That is an interesting scenario, though. You're in a system fighting. It's high sec. You have certain expectations. The Triglavians or Kybernauts win. The system switches to low, and it switched pretty fast, right?
Yeah, like I said, as soon as it was completed, the UI came back on, and it was when it refreshed, basically, it was low sec.
Yeah. So you're fighting in high sec. It turns to low sec pretty quickly, and if the gates also collapse, then you're in an arena.
That would have been very. There's also no stations in this system. There's also no stations in like a lot of these systems that have been impacted, which kind of makes me curious. But
might have complicated.
Yeah, it was. And then, so this morning now, the Triglavians have constructed a structure on the sun, like the Stellar Accelerator from before, with the beginnings of a Dyson, or like the solar panel like things that we've seen before, and it's shooting a giant red beam into the sun, and the sun is starting to turn red. So it's happening. I don't.
Oh dear, I'm muted again. Okay, so I was just saying, here's a picture of the sun turning red at the beginning of it turning red. So that was a blue sun. You can see in the middle of the spot there is red. Before we went on air, I actually went and picked up some images of where things were being, I don't know what, invaded, basically.
Yep. I've been trying to
Look at
keep
it for you.
people up to date on my Twitter every time that there's something impactful that's happening within invasions. You can see all of this stuff in the agency. If you open up the agency, there's the 5 different states, and you can kind of see, get a suss out what's going on. So, like, for instance, Shaggoth has Shaggoth is trending towards fortification, and so far Raravoss is the only system that has entered into a liminal stage. But it looks like there's Waro, which oddly enough is actually about to trend towards Edencom. So there's a lot going on. This fight is going to be a lot more complicated. I try to keep track of it, and I'm putting it on Twitter, and we are working on getting like a website to be able to keep all of this information in one place and allow people to access it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because it's not anywhere right now except on your in-game map.
Right, and this was my problem with the original incursions or invasions too, which is that, like, if there is no endpoint or anything, like think about it. I was so thankful that Arataka recorded all of the original invasions, so that way we were able to track things and learn what we did about stars and all that other stuff. But if nobody had actually written it down, it wouldn't have been saved. We wouldn't have that information at all. So
There'd be no history to
I'm
it.
trying. Say again?
There would be no history to the invasions.
Exactly. Well, yeah, and there'd be no data analysis because there'd be no data. So, like, one of the things I've become increasingly frustrated at is, as I'm doing like effectively archaeology to to discover what has happened to this game in 17 years in the story and the history and all these different actions. Like, I'm frustrated by the number of things that has happened in this game, and then players have just not followed up on, not the puzzles not solved, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I'm very motivated to avoid the sins of the past, and so I'm trying to, like, get my head around, how do we document this thing? How do we understand this thing? And more importantly, there's so much misunderstanding about this feature right now, because it used to be just incursions, because no one really expects what's happening to really be even possible, and CCP hasn't really communicated a lot of stuff about it for a lot of good reasons. But the result of which is that it's not very well understood. When things like systems fail to progress, people start saying that it's a bug, and then that causes people to not want to engage in it. And this is something that's, like, very it's a big deal. So, trying to make it so that the information is accessible and kind of cut through a lot of that, like, noise that we're seeing to get people organized and get people involved.
Yeah. Well, and how can they get organized? How can they get involved in this sort of stuff? What are the on ramps to this?
So just, we could talk a lot about, like, how these features work or how this feature works, and I am, like, trying to, like, build a breakdown of things. But suffice it to say, so if you remember the old emerging conduits,
Mm-hmm.
I now call that the tier 0 site, because there's a Edencom version of it called the forward post. But now that site, instead of spawning throughout HiSec, now only spawns in these invaded systems, but spawns like 6 of them at a time. And so there's enough for at least 1, 2, or 3 people to be rolling these things effectively nonstop. And that's on top of the sites that are effectively what, like tier 1 sites would be like a minor conduit, and tier 2 sites, which would be like a major conduit. So what that means is that if you're an individual pilot and you're interested, there are these sites that can be soloed in a battlecruiser or battleship that you can go do and run. And on top of that, there are all kinds of forces around in the area. You can hunt things down and kill them. But most importantly, while we're in local, there's going to be people probably recruiting actively. Generally speaking, if you put an E in local, then Edencom will invite you. And if you put a T in local, then the Trig side will invite you. I'm going to try to get it to change to a K. But so people are actively recruiting out of their forces because the fights are so distributed, because what needs to happen is all over the place in the system. The first day we had our invasion fleet, I had like 20 people with me, and I was just smashing through sites as fast as I could. And Edencom was doing their stuff, and they barely even were going through their stuff. And since they had progressed it, the better sites were spawning for me. So we had more sites, and I was crushing them with our fleet because we had so many people. Edencom won. And the whole time, CSP Sledgehammer's in chat with me, and he's like, running the sites isn't the only way to progress it. So running around and hunting those packs, doing that sort of was absolutely pivotal to winning for your side. So there are ways to contribute from, the solo battle cruiser all the way up to, the 15-man fleets running flashpoint observatories.
Oh, that's good. Like, anyone's invited, and I'm being invited right here with Ginger Minger. We need you, Maddie, come fight for Zoria. Torvald says, yeah. Anyway, so I'm being invited to fight for Triglavians. And so
you should definitely join the Kybernauts. Also, we have the cooler skin.
Yeah. So for players that want to do that, they need to type in a T, you said, in local?
What I've seen is usually the T, as in Tom, as in Triglav, is the Triglavian fleet usually recruits with that symbol so far, or with that letter. Mm-hmm. And the Edencom, which so far has been more organized of a force, probably because Edencom is like effectively like the PvE high-sec pro side. That side has been far more organized. So I've seen fleets recruiting for Edencom way more than Triglavian fleets, but it doesn't really matter because kind of groups almost start to form organically. I worked with another FC where I was part of their fleet, and they just put me in a squad. And like my team had a couple of Logi, but there wasn't enough sites for all of us. So like I would communicate with the other FC where I was taking my squad. I'd squad warp them all over the place. And then when a new site got called out or got spawned, it got called out, and then we would converge on that fleet. Like it was a lot of the stuff that we've talked about, like that wouldn't it be cool if fleets did this? And it's like, it's happening. So have fun.
Well, it sounds like it's pretty exciting, and it's working as intended. There's just still some mysterious around what's going on. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. And just another quick note, which is that your actions within these systems controls how you get treated by the NPCs. So when you start working with Edencom, then Edencom forces no longer attack you. Or if you work for the Trig no longer attack you. I was able to remove invading precursor entities from my overview. It was incredible. But shoot, I just totally lost my train of thought.
You affect the environment. You affect how they attack you.
No. So these fleets will also warp in on each other and will fight each other. Like you can land on a grid and like see Edencom forces engaging pro-Triglavian forces, all NPCs. Rasnaborg's fighting the Empire or whatever, and then you can go in there and start smashing them yourself. And with the fortress, when the fortress first came up, they spawned like a bunch of the major conduit type level stuff for Edencom, But because the Kybernauts had basically given up on it, they didn't have a force that was enough to clear out those majors. So when I woke up, there's like a ton of dudes just mining the hell out of every single one of all of the Rakavine and all of these different conduits. Not only was one group there with a major conduit that wasn't spawning anything because there was nobody there that was against them, but then there's the Edencom one where there's a bunch of people mining with literally an Imperial fleet guarding them because the site was spawned and was friendly to them. So a person would have to make sure that they were friendly with Edencom to even be able to go try to gank them. It was pretty weird and incredible.
Right. That's awesome. So there's a ton of adventures. We're going to be covering this every day, I think, for the next few weeks. Maybe not every day, but definitely for the next few weeks as things start to become less and less mysterious and we start to find out just what the extent of these new features are. But it looks like it's pretty exciting so far. Thanks, Ash, for walking me through some of that. I know there's more to go, but I need to get back to kill males, and then I need to talk to Insidious. If you want to stick around for that, that'd be great. If you can't, that's all right.
Sure thing. I will attempt to contain my excitement. I think that's all the big points. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah.
And we actually were talking about, I've been talking with a couple people about a weekly update, if that's what it takes. Because this is going to be a long-term thing.
Yeah, exactly. This is a new lifestyle. It's not an event that's going to end. Also, we'd like to, at this point, tell you, if you want to know more about what happened this week with Triglavians, we're going to have CCP on this weekend for Talking in Stations on Sunday. That's 1600. Fonsui will be there to talk with, I think it's Sledgehammer, CCP Burger might show up, and who am I missing?
Coyote.
Signal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Coyote's the dude, man.
I think it's Coyote. Yeah. So we'll have the people who created the content and who know most about it, and they'll be talking with Fonsui and our TIS staff this weekend, Sunday, 1600. Don't miss that. Okay, so let's transition over to the kill boards because there is some interesting stuff here, but we can go through it relatively quickly. First of all is the Fortizar in domain Armala system that belonged to Aurora Foundation. That was destroyed by Militaires Sans Frontiers in French, but sounding better than Frontiers. I always wanted to learn better French. In Rio, this is the big news. You have 3 Nixes going down that belong to Horde, and in addition to that, a Titan, an Erebus Titan went down. So all that was ambushed by Goon Swarm. Looks like a pretty significant hit there. I tried to get some information on what kind of ambush that was, but that's 3 super carriers and a Titan knocked out in Horde's home system of Rio, or R10 in Kalevala Expanse. You also had Initiative losing a Nyx and a Hell. So those are 2 supers that went down for Initiative. They were both killed by Snuffed Out in Blackrise. And then Narja had Northern Coalition ganking NPC corporation pilot named Brat. Brat Wurscht. That's his last name, Wurscht. So Brat Wurscht lost 20 billion in a Sharon. Let's take a quick look at the cargo. Ah, yes, bunches of stuff, 17, 18 billion's worth. Got a couple plastic wraps in there, so we don't know what's in that, if anything. And it just looks like a bunch of cargo, so not any one thing. All right, and finally, there's a couple more things here. In Smother, Hell went down that belonged to Unreal Alliance, and that was taken out by Triumvirate. Triumvirate just lost to Fortizar, by the way, not that long ago. So it's interesting to see that combat escalating in Insmother. This is the one I wanted to get to as well. A 200 billion Gurista Sotiyo was destroyed. It belonged to Guristas, which is an NPC faction. So that was taken by Fraternity. And that happened right as our show was ending yesterday. And so that was very interesting because I think Cable, who's, we'll call him kind of a bandit, goes around stealing or taking over the loot that drops from these Sotiyos. They're NPC structures that fight back really, really strongly, so you need to be capable to take these things out. And when you do, the loot drops and it's open for anybody to grab. And so he was an expert at grabbing that out the noses of other people. And then when other people didn't engage in this content, he would go ahead and isolate it for himself. And so he got involved in this Sotiyo that happened in Owasa, an RTAC Z. But Fraternity didn't let it go, and they managed to capture the loot, I believe. And remarkably, they're a very disciplined fighting force. So this is the second time. Fraternity yesterday took out a Tiamat, or 2 days ago. And then yesterday they took out this RTAC Z Sotiyo, and took the loot and managed to prevent someone from stealing it. And one of the comments I heard from Cable was that he was astonished at how disciplined Fraternity pilots were. He's never seen a group that could synchronize their fire patterns, their volleys as well, and as disciplined as they did. So that was pretty interesting. Fraternity is a giant corporation. It's run by Naros right now. It's founded by Wind Spirits, who's away from the game, I believe. But Naros right now is the CEO and in charge, and he is an amazing player. So what he's turned Fraternity into, I think it's still evolving, but remains very interesting to watch. Okay, timer boards. Let's look at the timer boards. The iHUBs is what we focus in on, and coming up very soon. The first one is in 2 hours, are iHUBs in Outer Passage belonging to Circle of Hell. And there's about 6 or 7 of those that are coming out. So Circle of Hell has a bunch of iHUBs coming up. So we'll see what's going on there. All right. Is Insidious in here yet? Yeah, I don't know. If Apollo, thanks for correcting me. If I said Fraternity was a corporation, it is an alliance, not a corporation.
While you're waiting, I did just send you an amazing picture. It's from the Triglavian Collective Twitter from 37 minutes ago.
I'll grab it right now. Oh, yeah.
Also, we have a Triglavian Collective Twitter.
You do? What?
I have no idea who runs it, but it's actually been around for a while.
All right, we'll show you that in just a second. I think I'll make this full frame, so... There we go. That is an amazing picture. Thanks, Ash. That's from the point of view of the Triglavians shooting a blue sun, changing it to red.
Yeah, so this is what was called the Stellar Accelerator. I believe it's now called the DAWS Protovidium Transmuter, but I'm not 100% sure. I haven't gone and made sure that this is the thing that I think it is. But
well, I'm gonna call it the Blue Sun Changer.
Yeah, so what it's doing apparently is scooping out parts of the sun, making some sort of change to it, and potentially shoving it back in order to mutate the star to being more liking to the Triglavian.
Oh, that's just wild. Okay, so we have with us a CSM candidate. We've invited CSM to come around anytime during this campaigning period in an informal way to talk to them, let them express themselves and their perspectives to the audience. And so today we have Insidious, right? Are you here? Yeah, Insidious Sainthood.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. I'm wondering if you could speak up a little bit. I'll turn you up too. There you go. Ash, you're familiar with Insidious, right?
Intimately. No, Insidious is a really good dude. He flies around in Black Rise and Essence area, so the Glente Caldari war zone. When we did the egg hunt, like he came and killed off a whole bunch of my guys. And then like later on that week when we did the CCP stream, he came out and was our scout for us. So it's kind of nice because he could have stream sniped us and didn't.
Well, that'll make you friendly.
It's actually, I think I killed you guys all the first time, and then we did a fleet together, and then we did the CCP one where I was.
I
on
got
a-
away the first time, for the record. You killed all my dudes on the outside when I told them not to be on the outside, but that's a whole nother story.
Jeez. Well, I'll listen to you next time. All right, Insidious, why don't you tell us your EVE Online backstory, like how you came into the game, how you heard about it, what early experiences formed some of your thoughts, and how that's brought you up to where you are now.
So I started in 2007, May 8th, 2007 exactly, and oh my, just ever since then, like I started it because a friend of mine was he got tired of getting stomped in Warcraft 3 Dota maps, and he was even worse at the game than I was. And so he's like, let's find something else. I was like, okay, let's find something else. And we spent months trying to find something that we both enjoyed. And one day he called me up and he was like, "Hey, let's have you ever heard of EVE Online?" And I was like, "Parasite Eve?" And he's like, "No, EVE Online." And I was like, "Nah, I never heard." And so he's like, "Yeah, I just downloaded it. It's pretty cool. It's a spaceship game."
Wait, what is Parasite Eve?
I don't know, but it's the same game that everybody asked me, "Hey, I say EVE Online," and they say, "Oh, you mean Parasite Eve?" And it was a big game back then. I don't know if it's still around or. But anyway, he's like, "Yeah, I rolled up a character. It's spaceships. You love spaceships. Come play." And I was like, "All right, cool." And sorry, I'm actually dying in space. I didn't know what was going on right now, so I'm tackled by a Draugr and dying horribly.
All right, well, how does that feel? Let's go into the mind of a Capsuleer as he explodes.
Right? It's frustrating because my push to talk button is my scroll wheel, and so I don't have enough fingers to click all the buttons. Oh, son of a!
Yeah, well, there it is, raw emotion.
No, I had a chance to warp away and I didn't.
What are you dying in?
Anyway, so I downloaded it and I had to call him back because it was the old NPE experience and the old character roll up, and I was like, dude, what is all this crap? Like, what's Minmatar? What's a tube child? What's like, I don't know what any of this crap is. And so I was like, what did you pick? And he told me what he picked, and it was Minmatar, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna pick the same thing. And hey, I think, oh, come on. And so, sorry, I'm now officially dying, and it's not.
Go ahead and straighten yourself out. I'm looking at what's this called? Parasite
Eve.
Yeah, this is wild.
Yeah. Well, for full clarity, Insidious and us fought twice. The first time he butchered all the people on the outside. The second time I actually did fight him, and his Draugr beat my Draugr, and that's when I stole his Draugr build.
You guys slid into me. Like, there was a little bit of salt in Fleet, but it was you guys who slid into me. I just want to go on record.
Propaganda.
And it was like 5v1 too.
I don't want to talk about it.
Okay, we're done. We're not going to talk about it. Ash is a good guy, so we'll respect that.
Did you safe up? Are you good?
Yeah, I'm fine now.
So I make you feel better.
I want to know what you were flying. What
I was actually flying a anti-Kiki Harpy, but I got tackled by an anti-Harpy Draugr. So
yeah.
Anyway,
that's some Pokemon shit right there.
Well, I had an MWD. He had AB, and so he was able to maintain range control. So, but due to my push to talk, I had like 3 chances to warp out, and I didn't. So, my fault. My bad.
Man, if you still got away, that's quite some good piloting. All right, so let's go back.
Vote Insidious for the CSM.
Yeah.
He sacrifices ship for this interview.
I not only that, I sacrificed a golem for the FFA the other day. But that was not a publicity stunt. That was just to get a good fight. So,
yikes. All right, so continue where you were.
Okay, so now that I'm got more focus here,
yeah.
So I logged in. I chose Minmatar, the old dreadlock, sunglasses at night Minmatar, and I got into the breacher, and I was like, this game is like, well, first of all, I closed the tutorial. So this is the old EVE. It started you in space, and the tutorial popped up, and I was younger then, and I was like, I don't need no stinking tutorial. I'm a gamer. So I closed the tutorial. Go away, Ara. And proceeded to not be able to move my ship. Like, I was clicking on stuff. I was doing like a WASD. I was doing like 1 through 0, like it was free space, control, shift, like all the buttons you can push to make a ship go forward. and they don't work. So finally, I was like, I had to hit escape and go through the menu and reset and find and ask Aura to come back and teach my now humbled, sorry, Capsuleer rear end how to fly. And it was fantastic. I did a couple missions. Back then, you ended up doing missions pretty quick. And I got to the breacher, and I was like, "Wait, the missiles are way easier than blasters," and that's where my missile spam love came from. And so I hopped on the forums, and like 3 hours later, I decided that I was going to fly the Drake because back then it was the ultimate missile platform. And my buddy called me back like the next day. He's like, "Hey, dude, let's do this." And I was like, "No, we're going to do this. And then we're going to do this because of this, and this." And he's like, "Dude, I hate it." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "I hate it when you do that." I was like, "What?" He's like, "When I find something new and you still know more about it." I was like, "It's not my fault you had to work." And I spent like 7 hours digging through the forums. Anyway, so that's the Genesis story. I quickly lost I trained to the Drake, which they're, "Oh, you can't train to the Drake in beta." Back then it was you had the 14-day trial or the 21-day trial if you were on Steam, and I blitzed to Drake during the trial. Like I didn't train anything else, and they're like, "You can't get in a Drake as a new bro," and I was like, "Yeah, save that crap." Went up to Raven, spent like 2 weeks every night grinding to get a Raven, and then promptly lost it because I went to duel my buddy who was in a Myrmidon, and he had changed corpse the night before. So when the Concord warning came up, "Are you sure?" I was like, "Hell yeah, I'm sure," and proceeded to lose that. Didn't know what happened. Docked up, got my ratting Drake, and I'd sold everything in station to buy like a 450 mil Raven, and back then that was a lot.
Yeah.
Like for comparison, if you keep track of the real money trading index, back then a billion ISK was $30 US. So way before the inflation that happens now. So I undocked, and then the station guns killed my Drake, and all I had left was like a light missile, T1 light missile caracal for ratting. And like I can't lie, my keyboard took a little tumble across the room. I logged off for the evening. But I learned like that's how I learned about GCC. So anyway, did missioning forever and ever for like 2 years. I was like a hardcore Care Bear for 2 years because I didn't know any better. The forums, the videos, YouTube wasn't as big as it is now. Like streaming wasn't a thing. And so every corp I joined, it was because I did something stupid. Specifically, like I lost the Nether Raven. I jumped into a Korra to get a skill book. Yes, I took like $1 billion ship through a low set gate to go get like a 5 mil skill book. And I died, and they were like, "Hey, you put up a fight, that's a decent fit, why don't you join our corp?" And that happened like 3 times. I ended up in Smash Roadkill out in 0-0. Did some ratting out there, learned to be an F1 monkey, and they imploded and leadership and blah, the standard 0-0 implosion story.
Yeah.
I was just in it.
You wouldn't have remembered it had you not been killed, though.
Right. And that's the thing is I love the loss mechanic. So a lot of people are like, make space safer, and I'm like, I would like it a little bit more dangerous. That's neither here nor there.
Triglav.
Right. Yeah, dude. Again, I mentioned it in private comms, but I'll say it on the air. The way the player base has responded, the fact that CCP has let us physically change space due to player interactions other than like getting your name after the sov ticker, like this is awesome to watch the last like 36 hours of just whatever. I guess it's like 72 hours, but I've been watching the streams and watching Ash especially just like hit it hard, viva la Triglavian. It's amazing. Let's see. So then I joined a small low set group back when we would actually kick people out of fleet when we got to like 5 people because we thought we'd scare away targets. Ended up in a nullsec alliance again that was our own. Kicked CVA out of Providence. If you remember Urshra Khan, I think it was Urshra Khan. So back in like 2011, the Pravi War, when Urshra Khan partnered up with BDeal, the Important Internet Spaceship League, and I cannot remember their name now. It was anyway, we partnered up and we pushed from Derelict. We pushed CVA out of Pravi from that side, took over the outpost, and then we did what poorly managed low sec alliances in nullsec do: is we went back to frenemies so we could shoot each other, and then it was like impossible to get a defense fleet together. when Evoke came in and evicted us, but it was also some time zone ping pong. They were early German time and we were late to US.
So that's interesting because I was friendly with Evoke when they took over Providence. So they didn't take it over from CVA, they took it over from you guys.
Yeah, they
was
straight
also
obliterated us. They stomped the yard.
They're good.
So for the record, me and my little alliance that I've been sucked into, my month-old self was in DNR with Solitaladas.
DNR, I remember DNR.
Yeah, we. In fact, I've told the story where I came back from my vacation on this in the summer and we've been kicked out. That was the eviction when Evoke came through and took that whole area. That was me getting kicked out of Null the first time.
Oh, well, that's memorable, right? I think it's the first time that Provi lost space. It was exciting.
It was a big war, and we'd pushed them back to low sec, and there were some really good bitter battles. I mean, it was fantastic. That was also like post Bob imploding, and it was IT Alliance, and I learned a lot then. So I learned a lot more about 0-0 because when you're an officer versus a line member, it's a whole other ball of wax. I learned about time zone ping pong. That was eye opening and very demoralizing, actually. When you log in and everything's reinforced. Yeah. And anyway, sad story. Blah blah. Everybody's heard it before.
Not the way you tell it though. You've got some enthusiasm.
Well, and that I love this game. Like people are. I get confused at the bitter vets. Like I go on Reddit. I try not to go to Reddit. Like word to the wise people, it's just not worth it. It's polish a turd. It's still a turd. I don't go to Reddit.
Quickest way to get turned off to EVE Online, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that's a different story.
Well,
so
anyway, this is haven for people who want to avoid that but get their EVE news. So TIS
right.
Discord.
That's why you follow my Twitter because I'll read Reddit for you instead. Or actually, shameless plug, r/talking in stations. The subreddit is like r/eve, but without quite as much.
Without the vitriol.
We're filtering out stuff. Yeah. Ash put that up for us.
Nice. So during that time, I went from being back up just a little bit. Mm-hmm. I was linked at some point, like I had my own alt, which I still do, and I was trying to do industry. I've done some mining. I was doing like the old probing interface. Oh my goodness, people want EVE Classic. Like probing interface will turn you off EVE Classic so fast.
Totally.
It was remember you just had to click for 45 minutes. It didn't matter how good your skills were. If you wanted to find the best anomalies, you just had to click for 45 minutes. It was so garbage.
I literally stopped. I was in adhocracy for just a little while, and they had to usher me in and out each time because I could not scan to get in or out of any holes.
Yeah. It was so bad. EVE Classic. No, you don't remember, dude. There's some rose-colored glasses when people ask for EVE Classic.
Yeah.
Bring back good scanning.
Bring back good scanning.
No, I was one of those guys that went through the effort to make that was a valuable skill back then.
It was like you were high value. Yeah, it was. You had to be. Did you have a $2 billion large rigged buzzard?
No, I wasn't. But I did. So every single during my lunch breaks or whatever, I would just scan down stuff. I wouldn't even run the sites. I would just continue to practice scanning, so that way I was good enough. And then they were like, and now everybody can do it.
Well,
yeah, so they did some stuff though. Like I think the mini game is cooler for exploration. Scanning makes more sense. But EVE Classic, I like nostalgia too.
But you're not an advocate for going back.
No, and I think when people say that, I think they want their friends back. Like there are hundreds of people that I used to play with that we were good friends that we would just have laughed. Like I remember again back when ISK was way more valuable than it is now. This guy Pacoon76, who was just a straight good old boy redneck drunk. It was like 2 a.m. and we're logging off, like there were no fights, and he logs in and just fall down drunk. And he's like, "Where's everybody at?" I'm like, "Dude, we were just flying around for like 2.5 hours, no content. We're all burnt out. We're going to bed." He's like, "No, I'll pay," and he paid me 5 billion ISK to stay up and fly with him. And he's like, I was like, "Hey, you buy the ship, I'll do whatever you want, dude. I'll be your spaceship, bitch." And I don't know if I can say that, so I'm sorry.
Oh,
and
sorry. I'm not going back to bleep it, so there it is.
Yeah, we can. But anyway, so I bought a Drake because back then I flew ham Drakes, and I stayed up for like 5 more hours. My wife was so pissed, but like that's the kind of friends. And so, and I think people say Eve Classic, they want their friends back. They want the good old times.
Yeah.
I don't really think they want the game back the way it was.
No. Well, tell me about the current state of the game in your eyes, and what's something that could be fixed, I guess, or one of the reasons you might be wanting to represent players with the company.
I was going to meme something, but we'll go serious. So I said it last year, and I'll say it again this year. I did none last year. It was not great. I didn't campaign as hard as I could have, and I wasn't as well known. But I did beat out Manic Velocity in raw votes, so I'll take that as a win.
Popular guy.
He actually lives up the street. And up the street, he lives like 20 minutes from my house. But he came over for Eve Utah when I hosted it.
That's up the street anyway, in a global game.
Yeah, well, I say the other day too, because I have a decent memory. So when I say, the other day, it's anytime in like the last 4 years. But okay, so I like, and it's going to sound weird, I like everything that CCP does. I don't like the way it turns out. I know people are like going to pull back and be like, what, this guy's crazy. I like that they iterate. I actually think they don't iterate and try new stuff often enough. I mean, I understand, like I have some knowledge of game development and game development psychology and all that, but I like everything. And I think the game is not as cancer and dead as people think. I'm not saying that it doesn't need a serious handyman and some serious wrenching and glue and some excising some dead stuff. Like, let's just get rid of the pause code. Can we make a roadmap? Can we just get that done? Like, if that's what's holding you back on 50% of all the other stuff on your roadmap, let's just get it done. Let's take a look at faction warfare. Like we've looked at it, we've poked at it, we've band-aided it. There's some duct tape. There's a lot of Minmatar in faction warfare. A lot of duct tape and baling twine around the edges. Let's get in there and tear out the old, put in the new. Some people have pointed out like the Citadel spam. Some people like Citadels. I like the idea of Citadels. I find the implementation a little bit off. Like there's just too many of them, I think, right?
Yeah.
It used to be pauses had a function and like you knew where they were, which, good or bad, you could argue, but they weren't everywhere. They were a strategic item, not a common item, I guess.
I know this interview is about you, not me, but my personal opinion on Astor houses is they're too big for one person. They feel too big. They feel the same size as a Keepstar when you're inside of them. I don't know what CCP should do about it, if anything, but it just doesn't. It feels like it's out of scale. So you put something down, it's like I got all this potential, and it's just for me. It's just too much. Whereas a pause felt tight and confined, and especially a small pause, you really felt like this is your little place in the world.
Well, on that line, remember bowling for caps was a thing that, like, if you fit a Titan in a pause for a while there, it was in real danger of getting bumped out and stolen.
Yeah, it's like an adult in a crib. Your feet are hanging out the sides, and you could get dragged out.
Yeah, some other people have tossed the idea around that if you can't dock in it size-wise, you shouldn't be able to tether to it. Because, like, right now, Titans... out of context, Titans are invulnerable, especially in like low sec. You can just jump from Citadel to Citadel to Citadel, tether, and it's air quote never in danger. And that wasn't the way with pauses. You could bubble a pause. There was all sorts of stuff you could do in both low and null.
Well, you're exposed though. If you jump, you
do get the one timer. Yeah,
it's you're a little exposed, but it's I see what you're saying. Once you actually tether, you're good. Like.
Well, it's not only that. Like, if you tether to some of the smaller citadels, like they're the same size as you. It's weird that you get this invulnerability field from something that you're technically more powerful than.
How much juice do they have in those little Astor houses?
Apparently, a lot. They're running on Triglavian tech. Can we look into that, Ash?
Well, when Jamil Sorum released the special shielding technology used, okay, I'll stop.
Yeah, stop. Insidious is too interesting to to run off course with, but okay. So you're basically, you've done a lot of things in the game. You have a ton of enthusiasm for the game. You've been playing a long time. You've adapted the changes. You like what CCP does. You kind of dedicate yourself to combat small gang, mostly that sort of stuff. It looks like your profile here is red versus blue. Tell me something about them.
Yeah, red versus blue has been around like a decade. I think it should be pronounced blue over red, but that's an internal discussion.
You're with the blue side of that?
I am with the blue side, and it's funny because the only reason I picked blue is there was a character at the time, Blue Lycian, who recruited me. I'd heard about RVB. I'm kind of new to them, and she's like, "Hey, come join," and I was like, "All right, fine." And so but you got to go with the small time role playing. I'm not a hardcore role player, but inside RVB, it's blue over red.
Gotcha.
So for those who don't know, it always surprised me when somebody says who's RVB, but whatever. RVB is an alliance. It's actually two alliances that are trying to bring the instant gratification of like a first-person shooter to Eve. You join red, you join blue, and you have what's called the Eternal War. So you undock and you shoot the other team. Like we have a few small rules. You can't shoot each other in Jita, and that's kind of the only rule. We are in purple mode right now. A lot of people ask, "Hey, is RVB still around?" And it is, but we're in purple mode, which means like we're joined together for a common cause. It happens like when we get war decked by pirate, the other alliance will join up and pew pew with us. But we have skirmishes, we have FFAs, we have thunder and lightnings, and it's partly to train new bros in PvP. It's
RVB,
partly just because of fun.
I think so that people understand it as part of a game style. RVB was created for people that wanted to get into the game, find a fight as quickly as possible. So there's agreed framework that if you ever saw the other color, if you were blue and you saw red, you could just fight. And it was, if you saw them out in space, it was just agreed upon that would happen. There was no insult or anything about it. You weren't stopping them from doing something because they were there for the same reason. So it was kind of a casual fight club.
Very much so. Very, very accurate description. Very, very eloquent there. And it still is. Like I said, we're just in purple mode right now, but we're about to switch back to RVB mode. And it's thing like if you see somebody out ratting in a rattlesnake, and it's a red, like we'll just say it's a red because I'm a blue, you can tackle it. Like it doesn't matter what he's doing as long as he's not in Jita. You can if he's moving a freighter, you can tackle the freighter, call the blues in, and whelp a red freighter. It's totally allowed. It's fun. It's fun.
Has RVB been kind of displaced by some of the work that CCP has done to make more casual gaming?
Sorry, I was trying to follow chat here and I missed half that question.
That's all right. Like, is RVB their intentions of just finding quick fights for people who can play a half hour to an hour? Like, has that been displaced by a lot of the PvE work that CCP has done?
I think you're specifically talking about Abyssals because that's a 20-minute cap casual style. I don't know, and it was hard. Player decline obviously affected RVB. We had a lot of officer burnout, and so our numbers had kind of dwindled. We tried faction warfare as an experiment, and it was really fun. We got a huge boost of recruitment. And then you have the abyssal stuff, but then the human malware situation happened, and so it's kind of hard. And I'm not the most active of officers, to be honest. I don't know that it's displaced it because it's still like you can undock and pew somebody, and there's always a fleet. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the hard. I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, carry on. So the current state of the game and some of the things that you maybe like or dislike, or what are some of the things that you would like to see CCP do?
So a few things I dislike. Let's start with what I dislike.
Yeah, or some areas you want to see some work on.
Okay, I'll iterate through those. Things I don't like. It's here, it's going to stay, it's not going anywhere without drastic changes. I think asset safety was a very uneve idea when it was released. I understand the mechanism. The original goal was to get rid of NPC stations, but NPC stations you can log off for a decade and come back and have your loot. So asset safety, like I understand, but it just doesn't feel right.
Too safe.
Yeah, it's a little too safe in flavor. Like I've used it. Let's not confuse the issue. I'm not going to die on asset safety. I have used it, and there's been some clever mechanics like bumping Titans to low sec for the hyper spam relay, and
it's also a method of it's also a method of getting ships into an area. Like if you have a bunch of dreads, asset safety them into an area that you normally couldn't. I've heard it's used in reverse.
Asset safety them out of a danger. I haven't seen
Not out of
that, but
danger,
it makes
but
sense.
into a theater that you want to get into.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you can deploy something and then asset safety over, like that's clever. See, and that's what I
Mhm.
love. That is one thing I love about the game is the clever use that people come up with. The current meme, I guess, is Galaxy Brain. I love the Galaxy Brain stuff that players come up with.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I used to sit, it's so dumb. I used to sit in Jita and collect Jita scams. I'd get scammed on purpose just because I wanted to figure out what the fluff people were doing. And there was some clever stuff like back when it was kind of new when you could do the escrow, where you list an item but you don't have enough to cover the buy order and stuff like that. The old carbon being sold as a Charon. Back then rigging was a lot harder to do, so people would you trade a ship to get it rigged. People would lie and say they had a rig that gave you an 8th high slot on your Drake or whatever. Like there were a lot of not clever and a lot of really clever scams. But I
It
love
was
it.
all
I love
inventive, as insulting as it
it.
was, but it was inventive.
Well, and I mean, not to lament old times, but you go to Jita now and you look at the scams, and it's the same 3 scams, and you're like, dude, like try harder.
I need
Like
a new
I want
scam.
a good try hard scam. Like I don't
Yes.
want this low hanging fruit freaking spam scam.
Come on, somebody outsmart me. I've seen all this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like I want to see, and that was the thing. Like I was mentioning it earlier. I was a mission runner, and then I was a belt ratter, and somebody linked me an endless subversion or a violator video where he was going around doing like 1v3, 1v5, and in old tier 1 garbage cyclone. And he was taking on like battleships and stuff. I was like, wait, that's a thing. And I kid you not, in 6 months, I went, and this is the old battle clinic. I went from unranked, like 350,000th in the game because I had a few
Yeah.
kills from the F1
So
times.
Battle Clinic actually put an entire, it was a list of pilot ranking from 1 to however many players there actually were. So hundreds of thousands, if not millions.
Well, yeah, and so they had it, and Zkill still has the same thing. If you go look, you can see the all-time killers on Zkill too. Battle Clinic was its own little thing, and it folded sadly. But I went from like ranked 350th or whatever, basically unranked, to I broke the top 1,000. I was like 300 or 936 or 963 or something like that in like 6 months. I hopped in the Hamdrake, and it was a whole new game to me. Like I never mined again. I never belt ratted again unless I needed security status. This was pre-tags. And I just went through space. And the culture, we've been talking about it, especially the last couple of days with all the CSM. The culture was different. You could literally jump through NPC null and like all of low sec and even high sec and ask for 1v1s in local. And I must have gotten like 900 1v1s in that 6 month time in my Drake.
Wow.
Like, and I would take anybody. You want to come in a command ship? Come in a command ship. You want a battleship? Let's go.
Yeah, command ships were hard to break. They had good tanks.
Yeah, but you can't. Like the culture changed. Like we were talking about, like, is it because of Twitch? Is it because nobody wants to be a meme? Like, where did the risk averse air quote culture where nobody wants to throw down mano
I
a
know,
mano?
and you would think with the amount of money that people can make these days that there would be a lot less risk aversion to losing something. So the price must be paid some other way, like in reputation or something.
Yeah, like it's weird to me because I remember when if you could afford like a Caldari Navy invuln or some Dread Gurista missile launchers, like it was a big deal.
Yeah.
Like when you killed a ship with a single green mod on it, like it was celebration. Pop open the champagne, call your mom. It was a thing. And then I had to take a small hiatus due to real life, and I come back and like officer mods, not officer mods, but like Dead Space mods. Hey, there's 900 extra ones of them because Tiericide. And then they're all dirt cheap. Like, oh yeah, 20 mil for a thing. I remember when 20 mil was like, that was a lot of money. It was.
Yeah. I think we're trending back in that direction with the scarcity. I don't know what they actually called it, but they're basically putting the squeeze on mineral distribution, and they're going to make it dynamic. And you're starting to see a trend towards more scarcity to make that sort of preciousness for the equipment come back again.
Yeah, I think you are right. We were talking against some of the null block CSM candidates last night. Like, so I was on a different podcast, and it was like a 3-hour pod or a Twitch stream.
Which one?
And then we spent like another 3 hours talking in the
Oh,
background, and they were talking how mineral prices are going through the roof, and the one guy sat on his minerals and like doubled his
Yeah, I think. Well, yeah. So that was probably Trash Talking Tuesday, or what podcast was it?
And that was DTM's, the B team. It was last night right after CCP stream.
Oh shoot, I don't know that one. I gotta listen to that. Anyway, so so you guys talked for hours about sitting on minerals,
about the scarcity thing, and it's funny because it's we'll segue back into the original question. I think skill injectors in their current implementation was wrong. Like when downtime was garbage, and like I remember going through, it wasn't Trinity, but I think it was Apocrypha, where downtime went from an hour to like 36 hours. CCP gave us all like 300k SP, and so there were little SP, spoofs here and there, or spiffs, sorry. But then to drop injectors and let 3-day-old people inject into a Titan, I don't know if that was the right thing. In fact, I'm going to go on record and say it wasn't the right thing to do. Not.
I think they have mixed feelings about it too. Even the creator of injectors has mixed feelings about it because of the combination of almost a confluence of different factors that tied together to create a situation that made perpetual power easier to get, and the entry into power was not changed. So the powerful got more powerful, and the average player didn't increase very well. And I'm sure it was made to catch people up to veterans, right?
I would think so on paper. So there's a problem, a well documented problem in MMOs, and it's power creep. The longer you have something around, the more features you add, and the harder it is to balance new features with old features, and so on and so forth. Like, it's a very well documented problem. And I think skill points might have been a solution, like, hey, nobody wants to fly a Kestrel when they could fly, a rattlesnake or something. And I think like not putting a cap on it, like the alpha has the 20 mil cap, you can train to 5 million and then inject to 20 million with the daily injectors. Not putting a cap, like a cooldown even, where you can only inject kind of like the Matrix, where he was injecting information, but you can only hold so much. I mean, it's a not well documented, but it's a well written sci-fi trope that the human brain can only handle so much so fast. And so it would totally be within the lore to say like you can only inject a million SP a week or whatever. But I think just the blanket like slam stuff in, and it's cool. Like, hey, we're going on a fleet, and I need you to fly a Munin, and okay, let me inject that real quick. It's cool on the single player level, but when you can instantly change doctrine for a 250 man fleet because your pockets are deep and CCP gave away free SP, I don't know.
Also, when there's a big mistake, they don't have that to go to, like, look, we're sorry, DDoS attacks are happening. We're going to give you 250,000 skill points. And people are like,
it's devalued. Like, I remember being like so excited because I used to do the math. I had trained all my training skills. So people who don't know, there used to be learning skills and you could train them to train faster. Yeah, you had to train to train. And I had them all at max, and I had all the numbers written down, and Yvemon, which is still around, somebody picked back up the thing, and I had my skill queue set up so I could min-max it. And so when I got 300k SP, it was, again, it was pop the champagne and call mom.
But that's interesting because people say like, yeah, it was silly to train, but at the same time, it was character crafting, and you really felt like you were either going to make a long-term investment or get right to the short-term investment. You had to make choices. And so everything that you did in the earlier days of EVE Online, and it's still there now, but not to the same extent, is you were crafting your identity, you were crafting your path, and all the decisions you were making were meaningful. Whether you fit a ship a certain way, you undocked, you were stuck with that fit for the most part. And that was one of the, I think, keystones of EVE Online, is you're making decisions that are etching your path forward, whether it's good or bad. Whatever corporation you joined, if they had a terrible reputation, that was poison on your resume, on your history for good. So everything counted.
Again, very eloquent, dude. I need to talk with you more.
Yeah, you should stick around more.
Nice. So, like you hit the nail on the head. Like I remember agonizing, sitting at the keyboard and agonizing. Hey, do I train rocket specialization 4 or do I train learning skill 4? And like I remember making air quote sacrifices so that I could be more combat effective sooner. But I knew it was going to cost me X number. And actually, I never did the math, but I knew it would cost me SP training speed. And there was a loss mechanic. And it was the same thing somebody pointed out in chat. You used to have to upgrade your clone. If you got
Oh, yeah.
podded and your pod was not upgraded, your medical clone was not upgraded, you lost SP. And for an example, I was defending CVA space, and there's like saying, "Oh, home defense fleet, undock," and I was like, "Yeah, I'll undock. Bet." Warp to the gate. They already had it bubbled. I got murdered, and it got potted. Woke up in station. Immediately grabbed another ship, undocked, warped to the bubble, got murdered. Woke up, and warped back,
Yeah.
and we finally forced them off the gate. But I had been potted twice or 3 times, I think. I think I had lost 3 times. And I had forgot to upgrade my clone because the heat of battle.
Right.
And so when I had a time to get rid of the shakes and calm my breathing, I popped open my my mail, and there was Concord saying I lost. It was 1.5 million skill points. It was 30 day or 20. It was back then you lost the highest skill. Remember that?
Yeah, the 5.
And so I lost 14 days on 2 different skills. So I lost a full month, $15 US. And it like you remembered to update your clone. Like it had loss, it had consequences, like you were saying.
Well, it was a wound, right? And it scarred. And just like you losing your raven going through a slow, it hurt and it scarred you. But those scars created your character, and everybody was scarred, and nobody was pristine. And if they were pristine, they weren't really engaging in the game. So you felt like, hey, almost like the more scarred up you were, the bigger the guy you were on campus, I guess. So it set you back. It hurt. It created character, and everybody had it. So it was fine. It was part of like the flavor of the place. Instead of what it forced you to do was research the game and figure out how not to get beat up by it. And it created like its own, like almost like heat hurricane in it, not hurricane, but heat tornado, in that you were trapped in this cycle of feverish learning, so that you could just progress in a way that felt more complete. And so it kind of has some velocity to it. Like there was some gravitas to that stuff, some gravity, but I understand also, like, and that's, we got to remove some complexity. I just feel like CCP, half the time they're removing complexity or taking some of that flavor out. But at the same time, like you said, you don't want to go to Old Eve, because Old Eve was kind of ridiculous in some ways. So it's a strange balance.
It is. I think some of it is like some of the stuff, like the new player experience, that needed to be balanced. Something fierce. I understand that nobody wants to start a game as a level 1 human with no class and have to fight against level 50 awesomeness. Like I understand that problem that they're trying to wrap their head around, but it was the complexity. Like in the same vein, remember when sitting in a mom? So super carriers used to be called motherships, by the way, if you aren't old school bitter vet. And if you wanted a super or a titan, it was a life sentence because you had nowhere to dock it safely. And now you can be a jack of all trades and you can have this awesome hangar. But I literally, on my old character and on my new character, I have not one SP in capitals because that was not how I wanted to fly. And I didn't have anywhere to save it safe because I was too nomadic. And
so
like
it was
sacrificing
a high level character is what you were doing to the Titan God or whatever.
Yeah, like it used to be, you had to roll up an ult and then pay and wait. It was like I think you could get into a Titan in like 6 or 8 months.
Yeah,
and then it was a life sentence. Like you just parked it and you logged off. And when you needed it, you logged in and used it as a strategic weapon, not just a freaking lowrider through space.
Or you had a sitter, which was even weirder. So you bought a character off a bazaar, right? You stuck it in to sit and babysit the ship. It couldn't do anything. It had no combat skills. It had just enough skills to sit in it, to occupy it. And that way you could use that character to log it on and log it off. But when you needed to use it, you would switch the characters out and actually use it with a combat ready character.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is there was this personal, not only alliance core, but there was also this personal level of balance of logistics. Like, hold on, I need to get to the Titan, I need to log in my guy, I need to switch, I need to keep my asset safety, I need to keep my assets safe, I need to keep my pod safe. Like, there was this multi-dimensional
Yeah.
4D chess internally and externally. And I think some of the complications, some of the depth has been lost for good, and I think a lot of it has been lost for bad, just through the iteration.
Well, what it did was, I think when they rebalanced the capitals, I wrote about this too at the time. This was a long time ago now, but I said these super capitals are no longer a different status. They are just giant sub capitals now. They're all on the same playing field. This is even before structures, because they took away a lot of that complication. So it was, I feel like they changed the nature of moms, motherships, or Titans at a certain point when they were trying to make them, trying to bring them into balance. So they would be, I think, so they would be less special and killed more often. I don't know if it backfired or not, because these things are killed all the time now, and a lot of people get into them, and it opened up the aspirational ship to a bunch of people. There wasn't that bottleneck of, do I really want to do this? You decided not to. I decided not to as well. It was too much work and too much commitment to have a capital back in the day.
Right, which is funny because my alt now can fly all the Titans, and the only reason I don't have a Titan is because I don't have a keep star to store it in. Like, it's still a safety thing, but now I have the option because the barrier was so low.
Well, here's the problem.
And so they are very common, like you were saying.
Yeah, in order to get, so you want to aspire to a Titan, you need to get a Titan. Now, you just said it. You don't want a Titan unless you can park it in a keep star where you can still use your character, and the Titan sits safe in a keep star. And what's that do? It gravitates people to the ship, and the ship gravitates people to a large organization that can defend a keep star. And that's why you have a lot of concentration in big groups like a Horde, like an NC, like a Legacy. This is one of the reasons that they have a gravity to them. It's safety for the biggest aspirational ships that you want to get into.
Absolutely. Anyway. Absolutely. It's yeah, I don't know. I don't want to get too
Sorry,
so those are a couple of things that because we could go down this path all day.
This interview is about you, not about but I feel like we're in a conversation, which is good. But really, let's just wrap up with you giving us some of your anything you want about your bid for CSM and why it should be you and not other people.
Because I'm me. Okay, so I got my meme in. No, so obviously, as you've heard, I haven't even scratched the surface of my campaign, and that's okay. But you, like you said, you can hear the passion. Like, I love this game. I wish they would still do the time logged in on the launcher like they used to. On my old character, I had like 25,000 hours, and I've been playing this one more seriously. So I have like 40,000 plus hours logged in on Eve. I still play it. I still love it. The trolls and the Reddit just slides off my back. It's something that I'm clearly invested in. I went to 3 player meets I went to 3 of the invasion meets, and I hosted my own. Again, like, I didn't do anything yesterday. It's really bad. But I sat in this chair from 7 a.m. to like 9 p.m. talking with people about Eve, learning what people cared about, learning about stuff that I didn't know about, stuff that has changed. So passion will get you a long way. So if you like that, vote for that. Well, I have a huge. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, mate.
Yeah, no. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just people are going to remember you because they can sense the passion that you have for the game. They can also sense the deep history you have with it. 40,000 hours is not a light commitment for somebody that's playing even EVE Online, but I think people can sense that, and that's what we wanted to get out of these interviews, is like, how can people remember you? And so when it comes to voting time, they vote for you. And that, I think you've definitely demonstrated like a passion and knowledge and that sort of stuff. But I think one of the things that people look for as well is like, well, what can he speak to if he gets there?
Yeah, fair enough. I have a huge amount of ship knowledge. I do fly mostly solo now just because of my work schedule. But I do fly a lot of small gang. Like I've spent the last year in and out of faction warfare, low select Black Rise specifically, but I do day trip over to the Minmatar MR war zone to see how they. It's funny how even just small groups change the flavor of the war zone. But yeah, so the other thing, it's an ability that's hard to show on the show or on the ballot, but I have a pretty good ability to take disparate items and draw connections and show, infer balance and stuff like that. My wife is always amazed. She's like, how did you correlate those two completely opposite items that don't have any relation to each other and find the relation? And this is a wickedly complex game. Like, for example, I saw it in chat. Somebody said delete supers. Never going to happen, sadly, ish. I don't know. They're still they're funny because I don't have any capital SP. They're still kind of aspirational for me. But you see, the other one is like if you delete supers, then you have this power vacuum, and there's all this other stuff. Like you can't just do fix A or change A to solve B. It just doesn't work that way in real life or in a complex MMO. And so being able to see the bigger picture, step back, is something I bring to the table. But again, like I said, it's hard to put and express on a ballot or in an interview. And I'm also not tied to a block. And I'm not just talking null block. Yes, we can cast shade on null blocks. It's fun. Haha. Goons. Um, anyway, actually, I'm going to segue. So
Sure.
I don't know what everybody else's Goons issue is. The only reason I don't like large blocks is because I want to feel that I matter. When I shoot somebody, I want my damage to be a large percentage. I don't want to be a 0.01%. I don't want to be like hit F1 and go make a pot of coffee. That's not why I play the game. I play the game because I matter.
All right. What should a kill mail look like? Do you like the status of kill mails, or do you think kill mails don't represent a pilot skill very well?
Well, okay, so let's just be honest. Anybody who knows, stats don't show the whole picture. That's the big thing. Oh, we can replace human intel with number intel. That's no. They tell a story. They do not tell a complete story. I like the subculture. Like I went and saw the Tiamat that died the other day. I was working the day before, so I missed it, and I love that. I love going and seeing what somebody stuck on an AT ship, a $200 billion ship that I can't afford.
240, 280 billion, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't even know if that's right because I think I saw it on sale the other day. It was closer to like 350 or something on the forums. Don't quote me on that.
Oh yeah, we heard about that. Yeah, 350, but I think it was on the market for like 280 or something. But anyway, the point is
280, yeah.
Hundreds of billions.
Yeah, that's cool to me. Now there are some concerns with like fleet doctrines and stuff getting exposed, solo pilots with their brand new innovative fit. And so we were talking about it yesterday and we're like, well, why not use 2 ESI endpoints? One that's only delayed, like it's instantaneous and it just shows, hey, somebody died, they were flying this ship in this system. Like just the bare data so you can still find fights. And then the whole kill mail with all the juicy details be delayed like 4 hours, 12 hours, whatever.
Right, not so much instant intel.
Yeah, and so that's a big complaint right now. Instant intel versus cloaky campers, and I was thinking about it, I'm like, well, if you get rid of cloaky campers, then the supers are that much, the umbrella is that much stronger. So to balance that, then you need to like delay local or something.
Wouldn't it be cool if they didn't show the modules, right? They didn't show you how to build it, but they showed you the statistics, so you knew what the guy was working with, but not knowing how he created it. And that way,
so like damage dealt, damage received.
Yeah, or he had a lock range of this amount.
Interesting.
He had the tackling signature of this or that. So you knew what he was working with, but you didn't know how he made it. So you could judge him on like, dang, this guy had great
I go
skills.
back and forth because some people, like I have flown with people, like I'm okay at fitting. I'm good. We'll say upper middle. Okay. But there are people who are that whole step above me. And I'm afraid of the people, the 2 steps below me that will never, like they'll still be flying a civilian Gatling gun Rifter
so you
for
think it's
all
good
of their days.
Educationally for people who are trying to like figure out how to fit a ship.
Yeah, and
Okay.
yeah, well, I think I love the culture behind it. Like I love laughing at people who fit stupid stuff. I love shiny. Like I don't care if it's a freaking 20k ISK mod. If it's green, I'm still happy. Like I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I do understand that protecting intel, and if we're going to go with getting rid of perfect intel local, then yeah, maybe we should at least slow the flow of perfect intel on Zkill or something.
Yeah.
Um,
I will
I
say this, when writing for a few newspapers, and I've been at this for 5 years, just talking about it, even playing for more than 10, but writing about it, I always look at all the statistics because I was usually in charge of the actual newspaper that I was writing for. And so I'm looking at statistics carefully to see what works, what doesn't work. And something that always got a big readership way beyond what it should have was L-odds, a link of the day or awful loss of the day. People love to see bad fits and how they were destroyed.
Oh yeah. I remember 15 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, there was a podcast and that was one of their segments. It only took like 2 minutes. And you would send in the worst kill mail you could find, and then he would send an in-game mail and reimburse like the crappiest mod. So, he would reimburse your civilian Gatling gun or whatever. And just 2 minutes, but it was good fun. And like, were you around in Battle Clinic days?
Yeah. Actually, I did some artwork for them.
Oh, nice.
Some of the
Do
signatures.
you remember the top voted fit on Battle Clinic?
Top voted, you mean through
Yeah, the player
Yvonne
voted created fits, not the lost mails.
Well, no, I don't remember. I just remember Yvonne was attached to Battle Clinic, so you could link to the fits through Yvonne.
Oh, I forgot that. Wow.
Yeah, it was really educational.
I don't remember what order they are, but there was the top 3 fits were like the ready for everything rock with like the 8 different guns on it. And this is back when the rock had 7 lows and 5 mids,
Yes.
whatever CCP. There was the freighter that had the warp scram on it. And so like there was this whole meme culture where I don't even know what to say. Like there's this whole culture, like you said, where people, hey, like, why are you flying? Like, so the Tiamat the other day, 2 days ago, he had a meta normal like storyline cap injector, and every forum that I looked at, they're like, why did he space pour the cap injector? It's this whole subculture and this whole poking fun and casting shade, whatever. I don't know. There was just some fun stuff. Do you remember when you could link fits, like you drag the fits in game, and somebody had the warp scram on the Veldspar asteroid with the warp scram, or the Polaris gun capsule fit saved? Like that was a big meme for like 5 years inside the game.
I didn't know that. I don't know that culture very well, but it was you were sending signals with your fit.
Well, no. So you could drag them in game like now, but it was saved locally in XML, so people had injected all these like rando fits. You had like 10 guns on something because there was no air checking, just like Battle Clinic before they fixed it. And so like I had a bunch of fits saved where I had Veldspar with a Warp 2 or a Warp Disruptor 2 on it. And so people would say stuff, and you'd link it in local and say, hey, but buy can't afford an alt, get a tackle asteroid or what. Like it was just this thing that went around.
No,
the pod with the Doomsday. Somebody Emperor remembers the pod with the Doomsday. Yeah, the all officer purple pod.
Yeah. Well, awesome, man. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to wrap around. Other things I can bring again is a deep knowledge, a wide knowledge, a passion for the game, and I'm pretty easy to get along with most of the time, unless I'm shooting you. So being able to, I think diplomacy is an undervalued skill, especially at a table. I know a lot of the devs personally. Like people, that's another thing that I get on. Oh, CCP doesn't listen. I'll tell you right now, people, I have a lot of the well-known devs on Discord with private chats. I've had CCP, not going to mention their name, call me on a layover while they were supposed to be sleeping from Shanghai to talk about the game. I have open, and if human malware hadn't happened, I would be sleeping on devs' couches. I have talked with Helmar and other devs. Yeah. I've talked with devs about the game at 6 a.m. at a player meet when they haven't even had their coffee, and watch them light up, and we talk about the game, and then we're late for a breakout session. It's so when people say they don't listen, they may not accept everything. They may not do everything that we say, and they don't have to. But if you think that CCP, at least at the dev level, isn't listening, you are sadly mistaken.
Yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. That's cool. By the way, that podcast you were talking about, I think, was Warp Drive Active with Winterblink.
Yes. Yeah.
Used to love that. Well, listen, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. I think everybody got what they needed to hear from you that is interested in voting from you. If you're ambiguous about who you want to vote for and you're shopping around, give Insidious a good look here. Have you appeared in other places? Can they get more information on you?
So I have my forum post, of course. I have my own website, which, to be fair, is just a copy of the forum post. I was going to ask, did you see my official air quote campaign video?
I have not seen campaign videos.
Here, let me link it
unless they're
in
linked.
Discord for you.
Thanks.
I was on the B team and it was DTM show last night. I will be doing an Eve Universe one on the 6th. I'm on Trash Talking tomorrow. I'll be on the CCP one here in just a couple hours.
Oh yeah.
I was for 4 hours. I was on stream with Corvus during Rick Javix's FFA.
Mhm.
I've been around. I'm easy to find. My Twitter handle, my Twitch handle, my Discord handle, my Reddit handle—they're all Insidious Stainhood. If you can't find me, you should probably log off the internet and go grab a book.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm being corrected. It was Fly Reckless that replaced the
Fly Reckless.
They're still around.
I used to be. Remember the blog roll? Do you remember the blog roll with like
Yeah,
Rifter
crazy.
Drifter and Nineveh and all
Yep,
that? I used to
yep.
read every one of them.
Yeah, me too. I used to read a ton of EVE Online before I finally got the nerve to start writing. All right, Ashterothi has a question for you, and then I'll let him take over the quote-unquote interview, but I'll be here listening.
Well, no, I mostly just wanted to ask because we're talking about your positions and your feelings about things more broadly, but I know that you specifically operate in Essence and Blackrise, which is the Galente faction warfare war zone, which is something that is of particular interest to me. Now, I know that CCP has been making some changes to faction warfare recently, which is pretty cool, but being somebody who has been like living in the area so far for a while, what is your feelings about the current state of Blackrise, and what, if anything, do you see needs to happen?
Are you talking game mechanic wise or culture wise?
I mean, well, results wise, like both culture and game mechanics are going to be influencing that decision or that answer, I would say.
Okay, I'll try to hopefully give a cogent answer here. So, as with any area of space, there's some ebb and flow. So when I moved back into Blackrise, Calcif was there and a couple other Calmill, and then they left. And so and that coincided with some super capital proliferation. Not pointing out anybody since I got yelled out for calling people out. Snuff wings. Excuse me. So there's definitely a oppressive feature to low-sec Blackrise, specifically where I fly, but I've seen it happen in other places where people bring the win button. People aren't. I don't want to categorize everybody, so don't read too much into the way I say it. But people don't seem to want to bring the good fight. They want to bring the win. The whole, it's not N+1, it's N+N kind of thing. And I don't know. I'm gonna end up wrapping myself around here thinking about this from too many angles. I think faction warfare needs to be fixed. Like, I think some of the stuff, like the cancer rats, I love the cancer rats. I feed to the cancer rats. I go feed on the cancer rats, like for the egg hunt. I thought the egg hunt was brilliant. I was and got so much content the first 3 days. It was amazing. I think supers are a little too oppressive in low sec. I think the botting, not like macroing RT or RMT botting, but like people just AFKing for deplexing and oplexing. I think it should be faction warfare, not faction warpfare. So I think some iteration on faction warfare. I think low sec in general, because if you fly through a lot of the non faction warfare low sec, it's pretty freaking dead. But the fights are happening, people are happy, so I think it needs iteration. I don't think it needs a revolution. Oh, here we go. We got the video up.
Yeah, can't do it with sound since you're talking over it, but that's good.
Oh, go ahead. Turn on the sound. I'll wait. It's got an epic soundtrack.
Oh, you know what? I can't do that because of YouTube, I think.
Nope. I have the license. I paid for the license.
Oh, look at you. That is epic. I didn't pay for the license. I don't know how YouTube works. I'm still new at this. But listen, if you want to see this, we'll link it in, and you guys can see it on your own with full screen and everything.
Shout out to Manic Velocity for helping me with this video. My video editing skills are garbage. I recommend it just for the soundtrack. He actually wrote the video around the music. The music's awesome. Some of the stuff call out real quick is I did in fact win 2 tournaments from 2 different airports last year.
From airports.
Yeah, so I won. It's more accurately qualified for the Hayes Open. That picture is from outside Salt Lake International Airport. I got off the shuttle as my fight started, so I literally had to sit down outside the airport and fight that match, and we won. And then I went through security. I had to run through security and get my bag checked and everything. And my flight was boarding. I was actually supposed to board early, and I had to wait till the end of the line because I'm sitting there at the thing with the overheads yelling, and my fleet hear what I'm saying and whatever right there. And so my plane bloated as I won the second flight and won a trip, not to Berlin, but I won a trip to attend G Fleet in Berlin and like free hotel and whatever. So then all of a sudden I had to go to Berlin. My wife's like, "Wait, what?" I was like, "Yeah,
I had to." Yeah.
Business trip, you know.
Yeah.
It was a business trip, so I was actually going to work. But this is like 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning too. I had to get up early because the event was in German time zone because most of the player, it was Berlin. I also won a different one. Somebody was nice enough to hold the tournament and run some promo reels because my plane didn't have a runway to land on, so I had to circle for 15 minutes. And then so I ran off the plane, threw my laptop on the first bar counter, connected, it was at JFK, and sat in an airport bar for 3 hours to win a different 1v1 tournament. So if you want passion,
wow, that's passion.
and if people are saying that they can't log in, I don't know. I've streamed 5 hours from a McDonald's.
Not trying hard now.
Yeah. I actually fought for the Hayes Open. Or for the 1v1 tournament, I actually fought a tournament from G Fleet in Berlin from a different tournament that I had won. So,
wow, what was your character for Insidious? Because you played half your career without.
Yeah, so my original character was Tweak Boy. It started in chat, and I sold it off. My wife and I, earlier in my life, we had a disagreement, and she's like, "Hey, let's go do some other stuff." And I was like, "Oh, okay, hey, let me sell all my characters and give the disc away and blah blah blah." And that lasted like 90 days. So, and I was actually babysitting a tune, and so I flew for the middle there, Jupacha. I'll type it in. Jupacha, the tune I was babysitting, I ran for a while, and then the guy came back to the game. And it was known by CCP. It wasn't account trading. There was even a request where the guy's wife had left him and he lost his job, and it was during the recession in 2008. And then the hackers had put all the cross-site scripting attacks for the keyloggers on the forums, and 1/3 of the game got banned one day. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Yeah,
one of them was the account. So it was a friend of ours. He lost his job, lost his wife, had his kids, whatever. And we're like, dude, he's like, I can't afford to play. And I'm like, well, hey, we'll pay for it. He's like, dude, I can't even afford to log in. And I was like, fine, we'll pay for it. So for like 3-4 years, we paid for his monthly sub. And I was like, I sold all my accounts. So I was like, hey, I'll just play on his, like that 90-day. And I was like, I only have this one account that I'm babysitting, so I'll fly it. And got kind of space famous at the time. Then it got banned. And I sent CCP this story that I just told you. I was like, hey, listen, dude, lost a job, blah, blah, blah. And I kid you not, and I didn't have the original email. I didn't have the credit card, all the stuff that you need to unlock your account. And I was like, this is what I'm doing. And they went and researched it and they unbanned the account. And I was like, I even wrote back, I'm like, this is why I play. This is why I love CCP. Like this big freaking fanboy email I wrote back. And then the guy came back, so he got his account back. And then I was like, okay, I have to roll up a new character. And that is the character you know as Insidious. My alt is Lilith. Like, I don't hide people. Like, if you think I'm hiding in the bushes, you're completely wrong. You can have it. There's forum posts. Tweak Boy was my old character. I tried to buy him back, but the guy hasn't logged in. My other old industry alt was Newbie One Kenobi, and the guy just wants too much ISK because the character's like from 07. So yeah, I'm not hiding. I'm right here.
Awesome. Ash, I interrupted you. Did you finish your questions?
No, that was it. I just wanted,
Alright.
because I knew that Insidious, like, you know, that area of space, infection warfare, is very important to the overall health of LowSec. And so as a CSM candidate, I knew that it would be important to let him talk about that area specifically, as well as just like kind of the high level ideas.
Yeah.
I appreciate you bringing that up, Ash, because I think people forget how important LowSec is. And if you guys saw, I passed a survey around about what is LowSec to you. And to me, LowSec should be somewhat dangerous, but should not be null. And that seemed to be the general consensus. And Black Rise specifically is so close to JITA, so close to the resupply and logistics for the average player, that it's way more important than people give it credit for. If you want to dip your toe in and you want to, see if you can handle the shakes and see if it's fun and stop mining and running missions, LowSec is sometimes. And I think it can be amazing all the time with a little bit of help and less duct tape from CCP.
Awesome. Well, it's been a lot of fun talking with you. And so if you guys want to hang out with us, we're going to hang out in TIS Discord here. You can find us also at talkinginstations.com. You can find your way to Discord from there. And so why don't we leave it here? It's been really nice talking with you, Insidious. It's a real pleasure. Ashterothi, thanks for coming in and give us a report on what's going on with Triglavians. And thanks everybody for watching today. We are going to go to Torvald next, so hang out and look for that raid.
One last thing I just want to say. I already tried to use my Twitter to post information about EVE Online. We are working on better tools to communicate to everybody and to keep people informed as to what is going on with invasions. But in the meantime, I encourage people to follow my Twitter at Ashterothi. I know, like, there's all this stuff about Twitter, and like some people like it, some people don't. But like that feed, just twitter.com/ I think it's just /Ashterothi, not like /u or whatever. But whatever it is, like I am posting on there like every single time I find something new that's going on. I'm trying to give daily reports and keep people updated as to what's happening. So, it's a war for reality. So get involved.
Awesome. War for reality. Awesome. All right, guys. Thanks very much. Here is Torvald. All right, and we're out.